I deleted Instagram at 11:15 p.m. on a Sunday. No announcement, no "I'm doing a detox" post. Held the icon, tapped delete, confirmed, went to bed. Monday was supposed to feel cleaner. Every digital detox video I'd watched made the same promise. Hours would appear in your day like money you forgot was in your account. More focus, more clarity. Monday felt like walking into your own apartment after someone removed all the furniture but left the lights on. The space was there, the time was there. But I kept standing in the middle of the room not knowing where to sit. Not because I was bored. I had work, projects, a to-do list. Because the emptiness wasn't about scrolling. It was about something else I couldn't name yet. I picked up my phone 47 times on Monday. I counted, because by the third time I caught myself staring at the blank space where the icon used to be, I realized this wasn't a habit loop. It was a check-in. I wasn't reaching for entertainment. I was reaching for some kind of status update about my own life. Like walking to the mailbox every 30 minutes even though the mail already came. By Tuesday afternoon, the absence had a texture. Not anxiety, not boredom. A blankness, like that feeling when you walk into a room and forget why you entered, except the room was my entire day, and the reason was something the app had been quietly providing. By Wednesday, I had a name for it. The silence. Not literal silence. My life was loud as ever. The silence was internal. That constant, low-frequency narration the app ran. Here's how you're doing relative to everyone else. Here's who noticed you today. Here's evidence you exist and matter and are moving forward. Had gone offline. In its place, nothing. Not peace, not clarity. A blank frequency where a signal used to be. By day 4, I realized every detox video I'd ever seen had given me the wrong diagnosis. They said dopamine addiction, slot machine brain, willpower fix. But what I was experiencing wasn't drug withdrawal. It was a system that just lost its operating infrastructure. I wasn't craving a scroll. I was missing 4 services the app had been running, silently, constantly, without me ever knowing I'd outsourced them. This isn't a video about why you should delete Instagram. It's the field report from what happened when I did. And the 3 tools I built from the wreckage. Not for quitting forever. I use Instagram now. For understanding what the app was actually doing for you, rebuilding those services internally, and coming back as someone who uses a tool instead of someone who gets used by one. 14 days, 4 services, 3 tools, and one finding I didn't expect. The app wasn't the problem. What I hadn't built without the app, that was the problem. Here's what I found underneath the silence. 4 services, each producing a different shape of discomfort when removed. You'll recognize your primary dependency by which one hits hardest. Service 1. Real-time validation. The withdrawal feels like becoming invisible. Not lonely, invisible. Like talking in a room where nobody acknowledges you spoke. Every post you shared got likes, views, replies. A confirmation signal that you exist in other people's awareness. Remove the app, and that signal goes dead. The discomfort isn't vanity. It's the primate brain losing its social position verification system. You checked likes because the brain needs periodic proof you're visible to the group. The app pinged that proof on a loop all day long. Now nothing does. Ask yourself, in the first 48 hours, did you feel the urge to make something, anything, and show it to someone just to get a response? Service 2. Comparison benchmarking. When this one goes offline, you lose your coordinates. You don't know how you're doing. Not because your life changed, but because the measurement tool vanished. The feed was a constant stream your brain used to calibrate position. Am I ahead? Behind? Enough? Those questions got answered every time you scrolled. Remove the feed, and they become unanswerable. And unanswerable questions about where you stand produce a low-grade anxiety that feels like being lost without a map. Ask yourself, did you find yourself wondering how people your age were doing, with no way to check? Service 3. Progress narrative. Remove this one and your life suddenly stops moving. Not literally, but the feeling hits hard. The app showed you your own story. Curated, time-stamped, measured. Your posts were a narrative arc, whether you meant it or not. Your follower count doubled as a growth metric. Remove it and the narration goes silent. You're still living, but the recording stopped. The brain, which depends on narrative for forward motion, feels like the movie paused on a single frame. Ask yourself, once the app was gone, did your life feel like it was progressing? Or did everything feel frozen? Service 4. Low-cost stimulation. The withdrawal here is an intolerance for micro-boredom. Every gap the scroll used to fill is now just nothing. The 2-minute wait for coffee. The 5-minute space between tasks. These were never gaps before. The scroll filled them automatically. Remove it, and they appear, disproportionately uncomfortable because your mind has lost its ability to sit in unstructured time. That capacity atrophied months ago. Ask yourself, in the first 3 days, did you pick up your phone during every small gap? Not for a reason, just because the gap felt unbearable? 4 services, 4 shapes of discomfort. One hit harder than the rest. You already know which one. That's your primary dependency. The service the app provided most completely, the one you've built the least replacement for, and the one that drags you back to the reinstall button within 72 hours if you delete without a plan. I need to be honest about attempt number 1. This wasn't my first delete. 6 months earlier, I tried a digital detox. Lasted 3 days and 7 hours. The reinstall happened at 10:43 p.m. on a Wednesday. And the trigger wasn't boredom. I'd finished a project I was proud of. 3 weeks of real work. And I had nobody to show it to right now. Without the app, the project lived in my laptop and in my own opinion. My own opinion wasn't enough. I reinstalled, posted, watched 34 likes arrive. Felt the validation like stepping into a warm shower. And then around 11:20, phone on my chest, I felt the emptiest I'd felt all year. The project felt real to me for 37 minutes. Before the likes, uncertain. During, confirmed. After they stopped, consumed. Like the platform ate my pride and swapped it for a number. Every failed detox follows the same arc. White-knuckle days, the void, then reinstall. Every time you blame willpower. But the reinstall happened because your brain was missing a service it needed. You can't live in a house without running water. Not because you're weak, because you need water. The app is plumbing. Until you build alternative plumbing, every detox is a countdown. The service replacement map. Your primary dependency determines your build. If validation is your primary, the fix isn't learn to not need validation. The replacement is relocating the source. One daily interaction where you're actually seen by one real person. Not a performance. An exchange with a human being who's paying attention to you, not scrolling past you. The app gave visibility at scale with zero vulnerability. What the replacement gives is the opposite. Depth at the cost of putting yourself out there for real. One actual conversation per day replaces 47 phone checks. The app was handing you social snacks on repeat all day. You need one real meal. If comparison is your primary, don't try to stop comparing. Switch the benchmark from external to internal. A weekly 3-question journal. What can I do now that I couldn't 3 months ago? What problem did I handle that felt impossible 6 months back? What decision would last year's version of me have been too afraid to make? The comparison engine still runs. It just stops measuring you against strangers. If narrative is your primary, the brain needs story. Build a daily 2-sentence log. What moved today? What's different from 30 days ago? 60 seconds. The brain reads the log like it read the feed. As evidence, the story continues. But now the evidence is real. If stimulation is your primary, rebuild the brain's capacity for unstructured time. Graduated exposure. Days 1 through 3. 1 5-minute gap per day, unfilled. Days 4 through 7. 2 10-minute gaps. Days 8 onward. Let the commute, the wait, the line exist as open space. The default mode network reactivates. The gaps aren't empty. They're the brain remembering how to think without being fed. Pick your primary. Start building the replacement before you delete, not after. The 72-hour window after deletion is when the void screams loudest. If the replacement is already partially built, the void has something to land on. Build the plumbing before you cut the water. If this is making something click, hit subscribe. I drop frameworks like this regularly, and the next one builds on what you're learning right now. Here's what every digital detox video gets backwards about the first week. They frame it as an endurance test. Push through. Stay strong. That framing is exactly wrong. The first 5 days aren't a willpower marathon. They're a diagnostic window. The only time the services are offline and the underlying needs are exposed and readable. Once you reinstall, the needs go back underground. Days 1 through 5 are the MRI. The discomfort is the scan result. Days 1 and 2. The phantom reach. You'll pick up your phone 30 to 60 times for an app that isn't there, and the reach has a physical signature you'll recognize instantly. Your thumb moves before your mind forms any intention. You're in a line. Between tasks. 45-second gap. Your hand moves toward your pocket like reaching for a light switch in a dark room. Not a decision. A reflex. But here's what proves this is infrastructure, not habit. When you pull the phone out and the app's gone, there's a microsecond where your brain blanks, like stepping down expecting one more stair and hitting flat ground. Your thumb hovers over the empty space, a tightness in the chest. Not anxiety. More like walking to a parking spot and your car isn't there. Something should be here. Don't fight the reach. Observe it. Each time ask, what was I looking for? Was it confirmation someone noticed me? Validation. Was it to see what everyone else is doing? Comparison. Evidence my life is moving. Narrative. Just filling a gap. Stimulation. Keep a tally. By end of day 2, that distribution is your dependency profile. More accurate than any self-assessment because it's measured in real time, from real behavior during real withdrawal. Days 3 and 4. The identity quiet. Phantom reaches slow down. Something heavier replaces them. A background feeling of being undefined. You're not performing, not curating, not measuring yourself against a feed. And without that external reference, who am I today? Doesn't have its usual automatic answer. This is the silence from the start of the video. The blank frequency. Don't fill it. Not with a new app. Not with aggressive productivity. Let it sit. Because inside the silence is the most important question the detox produces. If the app isn't telling me who I am, what do I actually know about who I am? Uncomfortable. Also the question that, once answered, makes the reinstall unnecessary. A person who can answer, who am I, without a feed, doesn't need the identity operating system. Day 5. The fork. Every failed detox ends here. Every successful one starts here. Acute discomfort peaks. One question. Same one you've tracked since day 1. Now with 5 days of data. Which service am I missing most right now? And have I started building its replacement? If the replacement exists, day 5 is survivable. If it doesn't, day 5 is the reinstall. And that's not failure. That's data telling you to go back, build first, try again with better infrastructure. Something every detox video is afraid to admit. I reinstalled Instagram on day 15. I use it now. That's not failure. That's the point. The goal was never living without the app. It was to stop living through it. Before the 14 days, I opened Instagram to feel visible, to check coordinates, to confirm my story was moving. After, I open it to see what friends are making, to share work I'm proud of. Not to confirm the work is real, but because I want to. Same app, different person holding the phone. The 14-day rebuild. Not a detox, a reconstruction. Days 1 through 3. Stimulation detox. Let micro gaps exist without rushing to fill them. No replacement app. Start with 5 minutes of nothing, then 10. By day 3, the default mode network reactivates. Uninvited thoughts, solutions to problems you weren't working on, creative connections that couldn't form when every gap was stuffed with input. Days 4 through 7. Narrative rebuild. Start the 2-sentence daily log. By day 7, 4 entries. Read them together. The first page of an internally sourced progress narrative. The paused feeling dissolves. Not because you believe it intellectually. Because the brain has data. Days 8 through 11. Comparison recalibration. Run the 3-question journal. What can I do that I couldn't 3 months ago? What did I handle that was unthinkable 6 months back? The benchmark shifts from where am I relative to them to where am I relative to where I was. Days 12 through 14. Validation internalization. 2 weeks of daily real conversations. Visibility from genuine human exchange starts registering as enough, not a substitute. A foundation that turns the app's likes into a bonus. Day 14. Reinstall with all 4 services running internally. Now step back. Imagine you've been wearing glasses for 10 years. Not prescription. Smart glasses. Beyond helping you see, they run a constant heads-up display. A count of how many people noticed you today. A comparison dashboard ranking you against peers. A highlight reel of your best moments looping in the corner, and a noise generator filling every silence. You've worn them so long you forgot the display existed. You just see that way now. Someone says, take off the glasses. The world doesn't look clearer. It looks blank. Not because the world changed. Because the display is gone. No validation count. The comparison dashboard went dark. Highlight reels stopped playing. And the ambient noise that filled every silence? Dead air. You're standing in the same world, but it feels completely different. Because you're experiencing unaugmented reality for the first time in years. The question isn't, can I survive without the glasses? It's, which parts of the display do I need to learn to generate with my own eyes? So when I put the glasses back on, they're enhancement, not a replacement for sight I never developed. That's the rebuild. You're not learning to live without the glasses. You're learning to see without the display. You've been told the app is a distraction, that it steals time, that you're addicted. None of that was the real problem. The app is an infrastructure provider, delivering 4 services your brain requires daily. You outsourced all 4 to a platform providing them in their cheapest, most dependency-creating form. Deleting doesn't solve the dependency. It exposes it. That void, it's just an app. Why does this feel so bad? The void is infrastructure collapsing. The service replacement map shows which service drives your reinstall. The silence protocol turns 5 days from endurance test into diagnostic window. The 14-day rebuild replaces each service with an internal source. You don't end the 14 days without an app. You end them with infrastructure. Validation that comes from real people, a benchmarking system built on your own trajectory, a narrative you write yourself, and a capacity for quiet that doesn't need filling. And then the app sits on top of that like a tool on a workbench. Useful. Optional. Unable to operate you. Build the vision. Then choose the glasses. Don't delete the app tonight. Opposite of what you expected. I know. But deleting without understanding which service you depend on is how you reinstall in 72 hours, feeling worse than before. The strongest move isn't the delete, it's the diagnosis. Open the app. Scroll for 60 seconds. Intentionally, observantly. Ask, what am I getting from this right now? Checking whether your last post got a response. Validation. Watching other people's lives and measuring yours. Comparison. Reviewing your own profile, feeling the shape of your story. Narrative. Just filling a gap because you had nothing to do for 90 seconds. Stimulation. Name it. One word. Write it down. That one word is worth more than 30 days of blind detox, because now you know what to build before you delete. Building before deleting is the difference between engineering and gambling. The app was never the enemy. It provides 4 services in their most accessible, least nutritious form. Like fast food for psychological needs, fills the hunger instantly, costs nothing, creates dependency because you never build the kitchen to cook for yourself. The rebuild isn't about quitting fast food. It's about building the kitchen. Sourcing validation from actual humans across from you, benchmarking from your own timeline instead of a stranger's feed, narrative from your own daily observations, and a tolerance for silence your brain can actually process. Once the kitchen exists, the fast food is still there. You just don't need it. Build the kitchen, then decide what you eat. The app wasn't stealing your time. It was replacing your infrastructure, providing validation you hadn't built, comparison you hadn't sourced, narrative you hadn't written, and silence you hadn't learned to tolerate. Deleting it didn't give you freedom. It gave you a vacuum. And a vacuum always gets refilled by whatever's easiest to reinstall. Build the internal infrastructure first. Source the 4 services yourself. And then open the app. Not because you need it, but because you chose it. That's not a detox, that's an upgrade. And upgrades don't require willpower. They require engineering. Drop a comment with your primary service and your first build. Validation. Calling a friend tonight instead of checking likes. ID. Stimulation. Sitting through one 5-minute gap tomorrow. Comparison. Writing my first 3-question journal entry. Narrative. Starting the 2-sentence log right now. Name the service. Name the build. Because diagnosis without action is just another form of scrolling. Subscribe for more content that reverse engineers the invisible systems underneath your habits. Not to scare you, but to hand you the blueprint so you can rebuild by design instead of by dependency.